Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan, Dave Smith, and they're talking about something Nancy Pelosi did. So I'm going to show you the Joe Rogan clip first. Nancy Pelosi had a debate at Harvard. Wild. And she got blown away. It wasn't even close. And what she was arguing was crazy. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the Rogan clip first. Okay. Then after that, I'm going to show you what she said in the debate. I'm going to show you what the response was to what she said in the debate. This person won by far. And then I'm going to show you a recap of that man talking about things that Nancy was doing and saying to him that were off camera that the rest of us couldn't see. It's very, very interesting stuff. And it really shows. And then I'm also going to show you one clip of what this OF creator, this woman, said about the Biden administration in regards to paying her to do something. Now, it's nothing crazy. It's nothing wild. Paying her to post certain things. And it kind of speaks to exactly what Nancy Pelosi was talking about. But it turns it around on her in the Democratic Party. Now, let's get into it. Don't forget about the new channel that I got, Coach Colin Media. This channel is absolutely amazing. We got all sorts of stuff going on. We got 94 videos. The latest videos that are up are all about Trump's South Bronx rally. It was wild. And MSNBC, CNN, they're all going crazy over it. Check that out right now. Link in the description. Hit that subscribe button. Other than that, let's get into this Rogan clip.
Did you see the Nancy Pelosi debate with the dude from Mumford & Sons?
No, I still haven't watched it. I did. I know you asked me if I'd seen it, and then my buddy Rob Bernstein, who co-hosts my podcast with me, Part of the Problem, he was like, dude, you got to watch it, but I just have not. I've been constantly traveling.
Yeah, dude, he handed her.
Well, I can't believe Nancy Pelosi actually did an Oxford-style debate. That just seems ridiculous. Who told her that was a good idea?
I don't know. I mean, I guess she thought Winston is just like this fucking musician. Isn't he a banjo player? What's going on here? Pelosi interrupted by anti-Israeli. Pelosi rebuked to her face during Oxford debate after condemning Americans clouded by guns, gays, God. What? What does that mean? Clouded by guns, gays, God. What does that mean?
What is it?
What does that mean? She's so crazy. Guns and gays and gods. Oh my God. Challenging Pelosi's position in the debate about populism. Winston Marshall, a musician who was once part of Mumford & Sons, now hosts the Marshall Matters podcast for The Spectator, spoke in opposition to the Oxford Union motion that this House believes populism is a threat to democracy. That is a crazy argument, that populism is a threat to democracy.
Well, like, I swear to God, whenever you hear people like Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton or any of them use the term democracy, just in your mind, substitute what they mean by democracy is our rule over you. And like, in a sense, that's what they mean. It's like, oh yeah, populism is a threat to you guys ruling us.
Yes.
And that's kind of true.
That's exactly what she's saying. She just doesn't know she's saying that.
I will say this, there's a really great debate. I believe it was the Monk it was between David Frum and oh God, I'm blanking on his name. Trump's big advisor. Oh man, I'm blanking on his name. I'm usually pretty good with names, guys. But what is the guy who masterminded Trump's 2016 campaign? Yeah, Steve Bannon. So Steve Bannon and David Frum. David Frum was a speechwriter for George W. Bush, and Steve Bannon debated populism, and the crowd was so hostile to Bannon. And he actually did a very good job in the debate. I highly recommend everyone listen to it if you're interested in this stuff, because he basically laid out how the whole Trumpist populist movement is a result of your failures. Like, who are you, George W. Bush speechwriter, to look at us and say, like, why is there this populism? Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because the elites mismanaged everything. And so then there was like a movement that rose up like, hey, these elites are screwing you over. Populism is, it's not a sign that you have a healthy society. It's a symptom of a cause. You know, it's like, it's in the same way, I know me and you have talked about this a bunch before, but in the same ways when all these people will be like, you know, we need to have trust in our institutions. And you're like, well, yeah, but we also need institutions that don't lie to us. And when they do lie to us, you can't turn around and say, hey, you have to trust these institutions. Like, no, the problem started with you not being trustworthy, not with us not trusting you.
I think people are starting to understand that better now. I really do.
I do too.
I think there's been a pretty significant shift towards people being very skeptical about bullshit now. where it's just there's going to be a ton of people, and some of these people, by the way, are paid. And this is what I've talked to people recently that are they either stream or they're YouTube personalities or they're Instagram social media personalities, and they have a certain number of followers, and they offer them thousands of dollars to do political posts. Thousands of dollars to talk about specific political issues.
Damn it, there's no money in my politics.
But you know how
I wish
crazy
there
that is?
was.
So, like, what if you have a really big account? Like, what if you have a big account like mine? We have like 19 million followers, and someone says, hey, we would love to pay you, to support blah, blah, blah. That is creepy, man. That's legal. That's creepy that you can pay people for their support for a political issue because it's this weird gray area where it's social media engagement.
And I'm sure there's also there's probably a few steps between, it's not like a campaign is directly paying you. It's like a super PAC or a group that was funded by that super PAC. And then you could and then you could with a straight face say, I've never taken any money from the Biden campaign.
Come on.
And you're like, but you did take money from a group who's basically Biden's campaign.
Right, like what the NIH did with gain of function research. We didn't fund it.
Had nothing to do with it. Oh, this subsidiary. Oh, yeah, this company that we fund. Yeah,
probably, but it had nothing to do with the pandemic.
Yeah, those guys are crazy.
If you insisted it, you're racist.
Or kind of like the way that the pro-Palestine rallies are organized by Students for Justice in Palestine, and those people are paid by the Tide Center. Look it up, Tides Center. And then the Tide Center is heavily financed by the Open Society Foundation, and that's heavily financed by George Soros. Kind of like that, right? Anyway. I've done so many episodes on that, and I don't want to say that and get Jimmy Dore upset with me again. Oh man, but let's get over to what they are talking about. We should probably start off real quick, and I know a lot of you probably know, but some people don't know, and then this is a quick blurb on populism, what it actually is. If it sounds good to you, populism refers to a range of political stances that emphasize on the idea of the people and often juxtapose this group against the elite. The term developed in the 19th century and has been applied to various politicians, parties, and movements since that time, although it has rarely been chosen as a self-description. Let me go a little further down. Populists typically present the elite as comprising the political, economic, cultural, and media establishment depicted as a homogeneous entity and accused of placing their interest, and often the interest of other groups, such as corporations, foreign countries, or immigrants, above the interest of the people. Well, is that not happening? Just based on the way they were just talking about populism, especially Dave Smith, the way he's like, oh, it's a symptom. It's not a good, I don't know. I don't know. Seems like a little bit of checks and balances here, right? The people kind of step in and they say, hey, our interests aren't being met. What's going on here? And I mean, look at that is just so, did I plan that? I didn't plan that. It just had it there. Such as large corporations. Yup. Foreign countries, yup. Immigrants, yup. Above the interest of the people. Yeah. I would say that's quite, to suggest that that's a symptom, or that's why things are, that's why Trump's movement popped off so well. It's just, shouldn't every politician be a populist? Doesn't that make sense? Don't you not want to be a part of this elite? Well, obviously every politician wants to be part of the elite. Don't you not want to be a part of that? You want to be a populist and you want to do things that are in the interest of the people. And that's just how it goes. And you're constantly checking in with them to see what their interests are. And then you're supposed to make that happen. Pass laws based on their interests. Isn't that what's supposed to happen? Like, in my opinion, I don't know anybody else's opinion, Trump is a populist president. He's a populist politician. That's why he's willing to go at the left. And if someone on the right steps out of line as well, he'll go at them too. And then all of a sudden when he's in front of a crowd, he's as nice as can be. Not just because he wants those votes, although that's part of it. Of course, he's still playing the game. Everybody has to play the game. He wants those votes, of course. But also, he wants to do what's right in the interest of the people. I don't know. Kind of makes sense. People do well, economy does well, the whole country does well. If only these interests that are listed here do well, the people start to suffer, the people get displaced, the people become second-class citizens, and then the people decide to lash out. It's usually, that's just me with my limited knowledge on that whole thing. But just wanted to read that to you, just so you guys know what that is. Let's move on to what Nancy Pelosi had to say about this whole thing. Let's listen to it. Populism. Populism's a threat to democracy, and it's just, all we should be ruling. And I know I like to trade stocks, and I'm really good at it. I'm worth $4 billion. I'm kidding. She's not worth $4 billion. Not yet. Wait until the next bull run, though. Let's get into it.
The fact is that using whether it's people different from me, nationalism, populism, is a very dangerous threat to democracy, not just in America, where we're seeing it play out, but in the whole world. In the context of a fight between democracy and autocracy, not mine, but the version of populism, ethno-nationalist populism, which tries to bring down education and fake news, the media, which is a protector of democracy, that version is contributing in countries other than our country and is a danger to democracy. We think democracy is on the ballot in America. It's a victory that we must win, because it will only make matters worse if they have another stay at what they're doing to the courts in our country, the fear that they're instilling in jurists in our country, the suppression of the vote in our country, the role of their big, dark, rich, billionaire donors who don't want to pay taxes, suffocating the airways from the fossil fuel industry and the gun industry and the rest of that. So money and populism, sadly, have gone together with this ethno-nationalist, what they call elite, which we call education, free press, and the rest. So I urge you to think in terms of the word. It says it's a threat. You're going to deny that it's a threat to democracy in the versions that have emerged in America so clearly? And why does everybody here say to me, what happens if he gets elected? Well, you can't let that happen, because for us, this election is Washington crossing the Delaware.
Washington crossing the Delaware. So she talks about a whole bunch of that. Now, she also goes on, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be in some of this as well. Yeah, I got a little bit of it here. We're going to hear a little bit more of what she has to say, but I want to play this gentleman's response because he just goes off. Now, I just want to say right now, this guy right here, this guy is this guy's hype man. This guy right here, he's sitting there like, break her off something proper, sir. Give her a rabble-rousing, won't you? Oh my gosh, this guy, watch this guy's face. But listen to the response. Let's get into it.
Before COVID, intelligence services colluded with big tech to have Trump suspended off Twitter. Yes, the same platform which hosted the Taliban and Ayatollah deaf to Israel Khomeini, they thought the president crossed the line when he tweeted on Jan 6th, quote, "Remain peaceful, no violence, respect the law and our great men and women in blue." That's a quote. You may be thinking now that Trump is a populist. You are right. He didn't accept the 2020 elections, and he should have. So should Hillary in 2016, so should Brussels, and so should Westminster in 2016, and so too should Congresswoman Pelosi, instead of saying the 2016 election was, quote, hijacked. Quote, hijacked. Thank you.
I just have to interrupt real quick because there's caption that you guys couldn't see. She actually says out loud, "It was." And that's why they all start applauding and laughing at her. Oh my gosh, crazy. And now she has some more.
What about the mainstream media? Let me read you some mainstream media headlines. The New Yorker, the day before the 2016 election. The case against democracy. The Washington Post, the day after the election. The problem with our government is democracy. The LA Times, June 2017. The British election is a reminder of the perils of too much democracy. Vox, June 2017. The two eminent political scientists say the problem with democracy is voters. New York Times, June 2017. The problem with participatory democracy is the participants. Mainstream media elites are part of a class who don't just disdain populism, they disdain the people. If the Democrats had put half their energy into delivering for the people, Trump wouldn't even have a chance in 2024. He shouldn't have a chance. You've had power for 4 years. From the fabricated Steele dossier to trying to take him off the ballot in both Maine and Colorado, the Democrats are the anti-Democrat party. All we need now is the Republicans to come out as the pro-monarchist party. Ladies and gentlemen, populism is not a threat to democracy, but I'll tell you what is. It's elites ordering social media to censor political opponents. It's police shutting down dissenters, be it anti-monarchists in this country or gender-critical voices here, or last week in Brussels, the National Conservative movement. I'll tell you what is a threat to democracy. It's Brussels, DC, Westminster, the mainstream media, big tech, big pharma, corporate collusion, and the Davos cronies. The threat to democracy comes from those who write off ordinary people as deplorable. The threat to democracy comes from those who smear working people as racists. The threat to democracy comes from those who write off working people as populists. And I'll say one last thing. This populist age can be brought to an end at the snap of a finger. All that needs to be done is for elites to start listening to, respecting, and, God forbid, working for ordinary people. Thank you.
Gangster, man. What a gangster that guy is. He handled business. Unbelievable. Hijacked. Quote, hijacked. She's like, it was hijacked. It was hijacked. It was ridiculous. No one should ever listen to Donald Trump. Oh my gosh. And then when you listen to her full response, she starts making it about Trump more than anything. It's not even about populism or anything like that. It's very, very odd. And again, this gentleman right here, he was having the best time in the world. He was having such a good time. He was like, yes. Oh, points made, my lad. Yes. It was amazing. But it doesn't stop there. This gentleman was actually on Piers Morgan soon after, and nobody's really talking about that part where he actually starts talking about Nancy Pelosi. I'm actually going to bring this to the beginning, not quite the beginning, because they mess around a little bit at the starting of this whole thing, but they play a little bit of Nancy Pelosi's part here. So let's play this, and you can actually hear him talk about not just his thoughts on the whole thing, but certain things that she was saying. He just starts breaking it down even more so. And just to say right off the bat, everything he said, so correct, man. And to call out Nancy Pelosi while she's there, and you can't see it on camera, but she is saying something to him as he's doing it. I just want to get to that point. Oh, we caught Piers Morgan in a. Okay, let's get into this.
On the subject of populism, and millions have now seen what happened next.
What do the Republicans say? Fake news. So they're diminishing that in the eyes of these poor souls who are looking for some answers. We've given them to them, but they're blocked by some of their views on guns. They have the 3 Gs, guns, gays, God. A snake oil salesman sells them a bill of goods and then takes office, and the only legislation put forth is a bill that gives a tax bill that gives 83% of the benefits to the top 1%.
Populism has become a word used synonymously with racist. We've heard ethno-nationalist, with bigot, with hillbilly, redneck with deplorables. And I'm sure Congresswoman Pelosi will agree that the entire month of June 2020, when the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon was under siege and under insurrection by radical progressives, those too were dark days for America. Yes?
There is no equivalence there.
You may be thinking now that Trump is a populist. You are right. He didn't accept the 2020 elections, and he should have. So should Hillary in 2016, so should Brussels, and so should Westminster in 2016, and so too should Congresswoman Pelosi, instead of saying the 2016 election was, quote, hijacked.
Was what?
Quote, hijacked.
It was. It was. That doesn't mean that we don't accept the results of it.
Well, Winston joins me now. Winston, first of all, kudos. It was fantastic to watch you in action there. I do see a life in politics possibly beckoning. Can we get that on the table off the start?
As far as I can see, if you want to get anything done, don't work in politics.
That's true.
So at the moment, I'm a very patriotic person. I love my country, but I feel the best way to serve Britain is to build things, build businesses, build social enterprises and those kind of things. That's how I think time is best spent now.
What I'm curious about, because I've done the Oxford Union, it's quite an intimidating place to go, particularly if you're up against one of America's most senior and experienced politicians, Nancy Pelosi. Did you have any qualms about accepting the debate, which was about whether populism is a threat to democracy?
It's also quite intimidating coming on your show, Piers.
So I just want to jump ahead to where they actually talk about Nancy Pelosi really quick. Right here, they get into it. Let's jump in.
We should talk about what she said in the interview, because her hypocrisies are astounding.
Well, that was what you did so brilliantly, was you exposed the double standard from the left in America towards a lot of these issues, like the January 6th insurrection, riots, whatever people want to call them, and the fact that they can't see any of that kind of behaviour on their side, like the refusal to accept the results of elections. I remember them all howling when Hillary lost. It's been stolen, it was rigged, blah, 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 all the same stuff. They don't apply the same rules to their side that they do to the Conservative side.
You're absolutely right. In that interview, in my debate with her, I bring up the insurrection that lasted in Portland, Oregon. Now, what I didn't actually mention is that and you can look this up, she ordered, Trump at that time was trying to send in more police and I think the National Guard to deal with the insurrection in Oregon. She ordered against it. So it's one rule when it's radical progressives leading the insurrection, and it's another one when it comes to Jan 6th. Now, she's completely blinded by Jan 6th. I read one of Trump's tweets from Jan 6th when she says, "Be peaceful, we're not like the other side." Again, that's not an exact quote, but you can look on his Twitter feed what he actually said. When I was doing that, she was looking at me, she was going, "Why are you doing this?" I don't think she's ever heard these arguments. And another thing from the speech is throughout, or maybe 2 or 3 times, she looked at me. You can't see this in the camera. She goes, "Why are you doing this?" Sorry. She goes, "Who are you?" Who are you? Now, I'm a nobody, right? So, fair enough.
Well, you're a pop star.
What she's actually saying is, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
And I was, quite astounded by it. Now, going into it, you mentioned, what's it like going to the Oxford Union? I was on adrenaline. You can hear from my speech, I'm bombing through it very quickly. I've never done anything like that. I didn't go to university.
I would call it controlled bombing. I mean, you'd done your research, you were ready for her, you'd almost second-guessed the lines of attack that she would come out with, and you just exposed the double standard. And that's why it went viral, these clips from this thing. I want to show another one. This is about the January 6th riots, where you asked her directly about comparisons.
And I'm sure Congresswoman Pelosi will agree that the entire month of June 2020, when the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon was under siege and under insurrection by radical progressives, those too were dark days for America. Yes?
There is no equivalence there.
I'll play that again, just on that little bit, because it was her reaction which I found so striking. A refusal to accept any equivalence, even though people on the left in that circumstance in Oregon had taken over a public building and, for all intents and purposes, were trying to thwart democracy.
Yeah. At the end of that clip, I asked her, do you condemn what happened in Portland, Oregon? And she looked at me completely blankly, almost as if she didn't know what I was
Because you were happy to condemn both, and that's what made it
Very happy to.
That's what
Very
made it
happy to.
powerful. Is that you weren't there.
Of course, that's
you
the
weren't there
logical
saying, "Look,
position."
I think January 6th was defensible." You were saying, "I think that was wrong, and so's this."
Yeah.
And so is refusal to accept the results of elections. It's wrong whichever side does it.
Exactly. I don't think. Why is that so hard to admit? Well, she's a politician. What do you expect? The first clip you played was from her speech, and that's really worth picking at. In her speech, she used the term ethno-nationalist maybe 5 times. She sprinkled in there. This is like a new word, like deplorables. Now, she thinks the whole Trump movement, MAGA, conservatives, she's saying that they're ethno-nationalists. I would argue she is practicing demagoguery by saying that. Why? Because she is playing to the prejudice of some progressive Americans or elite Americans that half of the country are racists. That's demagoguery.
Well, it goes back to Hillary talking about the basket of deplorables, and we see this again and again, the language they use about Trump supporters. Bearing in mind, he got nearly 80 million votes second time, 10 million more than the first time.
Yeah.
So she's basically calling a large swathe of the country, sort of imbeciles, fascists, Nazis, whatever language they want to use. This is what I have a problem with when they do this. They try and demonize a whole group of tens of millions of Americans in one umbrella.
People have had enough of it. I add to the point, CNN put out a poll about a month ago showing how different groups in America are polling for the upcoming presidential election. Trump's votes amongst black Americans has gone
rocketing.
from 12% to 28%. From Hispanic Americans, it's now at 48%.
And why do you think that is?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe you have insight into that. But the point I want to make is she wants to say that they're all ethno-nationalists. Are we to believe that all of those minorities in America have suddenly seen the light and are white nationalists? It's a totally absurd position.
I do think it's an odd position they get themselves into, the left in America, where there's a real kind of elitist snobbery about the way they go about combating Trump. And I've known Trump a long time, very well, interviewed him 40, 50 times maybe. And the best way to combat him is not to play to his strengths, which is to allow him to martyr himself and say, look at these people, they think they're better than you. I'm here for the little guy. It's a very effective weapon for him, which they constantly feed.
They've taken him off the ballot in Maine and Colorado. Yeah. They are making him more popular. This feeds the narrative that the establishment is out to get Trump, which makes him more popular. If only these Democrats would just start listening and respecting to ordinary Americans.
Yeah.
It's so easy. They've literally had power for 4 years. It's absurd to me that they have such disdain for working people.
We've had the same...
Very true. Very, very, very true. If they just would listen to the people. And I've brought this up so many times. Tucker Carlson has talked about this so many times, where he's like, look at what the politicians are doing, look at the things that they're investing in, and then look at your community, and what you guys think the biggest problem is. And I've said so many times, I've shown it, that the top 3 things that people are the most worried about, I believe the economy is at the top, and then it's immigration, and then it's inflation. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. Those are the top 3. How much goes into those things? Securing the border. Not just letting in crazy amounts of random people. Chuck Schumer just recently was like, the goal is to get those 11 or 12 million or however many undocumented people, get them citizenship. It's like, what? Huh? Are you crazy? But that's their goal. And then you look at your community. What's the community's goal? Well, they want to be able to buy eggs, and they want to be able to buy groceries in abundance, and not have to worry about how rent's going to get paid, not have to worry about how bills are going to get paid, not have to sacrifice one because the other has to get paid. That's the main thing people are looking for, to feel stable, to not feel demoralized, to not feel like every single time they turn on the TV, the politicians are doing things for other people and treating them like second-class citizens. It's really simple. And he's right. They've had power. They could easily do that. Even Trump has said something about that, where he said about Biden, he's like, if Biden was a great president, he's like, I wouldn't even be running. He's like, if he would just do what was right, If he would just do the things that were right, if he was just a great president, he's like, I would have no need to be doing this. And he's right. He's 100% right. If Biden would just take it seriously and take the people seriously, wouldn't be in any of this mess. Trump, I'm not saying Trump would go above and beyond to try and support the guy, but he definitely wouldn't have to be doing what he's doing. But it does really seem like he has to do this. He really does. Now, I'm going to play this, and there's a reason that I'm going to play this really quick. Just because Nancy Pelosi, she's talking about the poor souls that are being confused by things that Trump is doing, by characterizing things as fake news, by sowing dissent and distrust in the mainstream media. But there's a reason that there's so much distrust. Dave Smith even brought it up. It's not the fact that everybody just distrusts just for no reason. It's because these institutions are doing things and being caught doing things to be distrusted. And this is actually one of them. Check this out.
I started TikTok like the spring semester of my senior year, and I was like, fuck, I finally have to start applying for law school. And then like, female privilege, life is so easy for a, woman. Obviously, I lucked out. I'm just kidding. I lucked out. And then, TikTok was basically full time for me. I think I was taking ads by the time I graduated college from like the Biden administration and Planned Parenthood and like dating apps and stuff. So it was like fully financially, sustaining
So you were
me.
getting, the Biden administration was buying ads from you?
Yeah, I was doing full on political propaganda.
And they would really with like what kind of like Biden created 10 million jobs this year?
Yeah, honestly. And the funny thing is they're like, do not disclose this is an ad because, they're like, technically it's not a product. So you don't have to disclose it's an ad. Because I think they just wanted like some edgy girl of color to just tell people like when they nominated like Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're like, can you say like as a person of color, that you feel reflected? And it's like a white woman emailing this to me and she's like giving me this script and I'm like, no. And she's like, please. And I'm like, no, I'll like talk about the news of it, but I'm not going to have a white person tell me to be like, this is how I feel as a person of color. Like it's just so, I think that black-pilled me slightly on like, political propaganda
So
stuff.
the Biden administration sees, here's this young,
yeah, I mean they use like a conduit. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not Biden, but it's like
Biden.
it's like a third party. You know what I mean? It's like a media company that's doing it on his behalf. I'm not blaming him for this.
Yeah. And the message is like, because you're a dark-skinned woman, you will be inspired by Ketanji Brown Jackson and all the kids should support her.
Yeah, they're like basically as like another black person, just say that like you feel reflected by Ketanji. I'm like, no, I'll talk about like Ketanji's background and her accomplishments, but like I never, you know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna say like the corny stuff. Even if it was a brown person emailing it to me, I'm like, no, that's not like how I feel. Like I don't look at like Ketanji and feel like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. See, yeah.
How amazing is that? That is a OF girl. She's a creator. What is her name? Let's go to the top here. What is her name? Farha Khalidi. So she was told to make these posts. There's another person, Harry Sisson. It's been alleged and almost proven that it's the same type of thing where it's not exactly the people, it's not exactly the DNC, but the DNC pays this company called Palette Management, and that management company manages this creator who makes a whole bunch of pro-Biden content. It's the exact same thing with this girl. So when she talks about these poor souls who are just so confused, they're confused because of what the administration is doing. They're confused because of what the mainstream media is doing. Like I just watched something with Joy Reid. Trump had a rally in South Bronx. The officials who have to actually watch how many people were like, there was at the peak, it was like 156,000 people. And she's like, nope, there was 3,000 people. Look. And she showed this picture. And then I was able to find this picture on X, and it was a picture from 11:09 a.m. And it was 7 hours before the event even started. Trump didn't take the stage until 6:30 p.m. And she's showing this picture like that was the peak. That's all it is. Then she shows another small clip of 10 black people standing together who are anti-Trump. And she's like, see, black people don't like Trump. This is the type of stuff. This is the type of stuff that makes people go, I'm not trusting you. This is the type of thing that when something happens, people don't go to MSNBC. They don't go to CNN. They don't go to the mainstream anymore. They just go straight to X. They're like, because X is, talking about populism, X is a very populist type of place. It's the people posting about things that are of the people's interests. So you want to go there and just, and I know some of you want nothing to do with X, and that's fine, because, you know, I'll bring you all sorts of stuff. I don't stop. I do this every day, but I'm just saying, like, there's a reason why they're so untrusted. And for her to actually know that all this is going on, and to call regular people these poor souls that just can't figure it out because Trump is the boogeyman and he's branding things as fake news. That's one of the realest things he's ever said. I mean, look at it all now. Think about when he first said that. It's one of the realest things he's ever said. Hands down. Think about it. He called them out in a big way, and don't we all see it now? Easily. It's so easy. You can just go and watch any of the mainstream media and go, oh, this is not real. And you can just go over to another app and be like, oh, this is actually the actual story, you know? And then to actually brand the problem as being guns. I told you she said some wild stuff. Guns, gays, and gods. She said that's what's clouding the American people. They're clouded by those topics. So they can't see past the answers that the Democrats are providing them. So they're asking for the answers. They're getting the answers, but they're clouded by guns, gays, and gods. It's amazing. It's amazing because it goes right back to the Saul Alinsky teaching of, brand people, you know, or project on people exactly what you're doing. And when you look at the administration, when you look at the current state of things, aren't they the ones clouded by guns, gays, and gods? Or in God? Aren't they slowly trying to demonize and push out anybody who's of religious faith? Doesn't matter what religion it is. Aren't they pushing so hard a whole agenda that is not straight? Aren't they also trying to go after guns constantly and constantly demonizing guns, whether it's legal, safe ownership, or otherwise? You know what I mean? Just these little things, man. But I just wanted to show you guys that. It was just a wild occurrence. And, you know, going back to what Dave Smith said, he's right. Why did she think this was a good idea? I think maybe she thought she was going to be a speaker. Because it's funny, Terrence Howard, you know, talking about Terrence Howard, he was recently on the podcast. He went there as a speaker and he spoke. There was no debate. You know, people got to ask questions and question what he was saying. But she went for a debate. I think she might have got her wires crossed and didn't realize that it was a hardcore debate, you know, because she wasn't prepared. And, you know, she was kind of prepared. She had a lot to say. But in reality, what she's saying is that the people aren't to be trusted. And that is kind of, you know, at the end of this, you know, because I'm ending it, that is what they think. They feel like the people can't be trusted, you know, and this guy, he said it perfectly. The guy who responded, former from Mumford and Sons. He used to be a part of that band, but, you know, branding people as racist, sexist, Nazis, deplorables, as he was saying. Christian white nationalist is another one that they keep putting on people, and they even put it on black people sometimes. I'm not kidding about that. It's wild. White supremacist, all those things. They keep on pushing all of that onto the people. Anytime the people do something that is outside of what they're trying to get you to do, when you draw outside the lines, you become one of those things. It's just, of course the people aren't going to, you constantly, administration, as a party, as just the government, they're constantly lashing out at us. So when somebody like Trump is like, I'm going to say the thing, I've said this before too, and I'm sure you have too. When someone like Trump comes along, he says, I'm going to say the things to this person that you want to say, but they'll kick you out if you do. I'm going to watch. Everybody's like, this is amazing. Like when we're talking about the people's interests, that's one of their interests. That they want these people in power to feel it a little bit. They want somebody to give it to them a little bit. Trump's doing that. And then on top of that, he starts doing, when he's actually in power, he's not just doing comedy. He's actually doing things that are in the interests of the people, in the interests of America. I don't know, man. It's a pretty basic concept. Do things that the people want you to do. They will continue to keep you in power. They just will. You or your party, they'll continue to keep you in power. And for some reason, the Democrats, you know, and I'm sorry to blanket statement, but they just don't understand that. They just think that they know what's best and that you should just go along with it. And if you can't go along with it, just shh, and we'll handle it. Just shh. That's enough. We've seen it with, you know, minorities, how they think they just own minorities. And, you know, if you don't fall under the scope of minorities, and let's say you're white, and you know, you should be feel very guilty about that. Then you get branded as all sorts of other things. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to show you that. I thought it was a real interesting little debate that happened, and hopefully Nancy does this again. I have to say, I would enjoy seeing this about every month or so. Hopefully it gave her a little reality check too. That'd be great. She never gets one. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. It helps the channel tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.